in a second, we'll introduce our program and what we're doing today. But good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We're all here joined for the Nordic Blockchain Alliance, and this is our final webinar for this morning or for this year. We have been working together, 6 different organizations, all with a great passion for the lifestyle industry and definitely with the means of wanting to make a difference, wanting to help the industry navigate in the future legislation, but more importantly, trying to figure out how to use this technology that we have available and not only be compliant, but actually start building new business models. And this past year, we have gained so much knowledge. We have been very happy and delightful to talk to so many different people around the countries and from very many different brands, and all gaining insights on how can blockchain technology not only lift and elevate transparency and traceability, but could we look into a future where we could meet the requirements of the digital product passport, and on top of that, find new business models? All of these great things we hope to answer today. And Frederik, do you want to share a little bit and say good morning from Lifestyle and Design Cluster?
Yeah, good morning and welcome. We're so happy to see you guys. So we have a pretty action-packed program here today, and to be very much on brand Nordic-wise, Heidi is sitting in an unheated office with 12 degrees, so we go all in when we do things. So we're starting now with welcoming you guys, and then after our welcome, we'll go into traceability and transparency from an overarching perspective with Faith Robinson, who's head of content at the Global Fashion Agenda. Then after Faith, we'll talk with Anders Arenfeldt from Erhvervsstyrelsen in Denmark on the digital product passport and what that is about. Then our Nordic partners will go into the potential of a Nordic blockchain, a shared Nordic blockchain. They have a really interesting study to show us. After that, we move to the Swedish partners. We'll talk about how we attract tech suppliers to projects like this. Then we will look at the international perspective of the campaign that we've been doing. And then finally, we will round up. But with such an action-packed program, let's jump right into it. And we want to start by showing you a teaser for the end result of the digital campaign that we've been doing called Ask the Nordic Way. And the campaign is a series of 5 podcasts where Nordic companies discuss transparency, traceability, and technology, and the road forward. So with no further ado, let's have a look at the teaser video to get you inspired.
The fashion, furniture, and design industry is on a transformative journey. And soon, there's no room for keeping any secrets or not knowing what's in your supply chain. New technologies provides opportunity for this major change that the industry is facing. Not long ago, nobody believed that an expensive design product could be sold online, whereas today it's not only normal, it's a very vital revenue stream for the industry. So we adapted to that change, and we will adapt to this next one.
Can we actually grow without making new products?
There are no limits if you think about it. You can create anything you set your mind to.
It's not just traceability and transparency, but it's also all about narrative.
For me, blockchain is not like replacing the deep work we have to do. It's an experiment, but we don't probably yet have the market, have the habits. Yet, it's coming for sure.
We've gathered some of the most innovative and forward-thinking lifestyle and design brands in the Nordics for a podcast series about the future of enhanced traceability and more sustainable production.
We can be competitive if we are transparent. Hopefully the buyers choose us before they choose someone else.
To be transparent is not enough. You have nothing to hide. You're like an honest company. And I think also information is power. And I think we have to give that to the market so they actually can start asking for better products.
Having this transparency will lead to that, you know, that you really check on your suppliers, that, yeah, this is a supplier that we can stand behind and showcase to our customers that we're working with this supplier.
The industry stands on the threshold of a more digital and transparent future, where the demands from consumers and legislators are unmistakable.
Fast fashion is out of fashion.
Many consumers, they want a product that portrays their values, right? And this is one way of kind of like securing that.
The business model is the key in fashion, and I see this is what is not changing anywhere, and I think you're part of changing that.
For us, it's about engaging with the customers and finding out what information they like to have.
Responsibility, credibility, sustainability, and transparency are of the essence.
Traceability and sharing data for us is about building trust and building value. The more we share with our customers, the more stories they have, the more they know about their products.
So now it's a driver for us commercially that brands start seeing the benefits of having and possessing accurate data.
Traceability has always been quite important for us because we look a lot into documentation, and many of our products has eco-labeling.
Creating a structural digital product passport is really complex.
This is your invitation to join the conversation and join our voyage of transparency and change. Let's explore, evolve, and ask the Nordic way.
All right, so now that we've been introduced to what the digital campaign looks like, we'll hear an overarching perspective on why traceability and transparency is so important within the fashion and lifestyle industry, and where we are today from an international and from a Nordic perspective. So we very much hope that Faith is with us, Faith, who's head of content at Global Fashion Agenda. And Faith, I can see you now, which is great. We'd also really like to hear your opinion about the podcast, Ask the Nordic Way, in relation to transparency and traceability. How does it relate to that agenda? So thank you very much for being with us now, and please just take over.
Well, that sounds great, Fred, and hi everyone. It's kind of a privilege for me to be here in community with you. My name's Faith. I'm here in Blocks in the city on this glorious sunny day, and I'm here on behalf of Global Fashion Agenda, where I'm head of content. I'm from the UK and moved here to Denmark a couple of years ago to be part of this visionary Nordic lifestyle industry. So yeah, to be spending time with you this morning is a real privilege for me, and thanks a lot, Fred, for inviting me. Firstly, I'll just reintroduce or introduce Global Fashion Agenda, and then I'll get to your question, Fred, and respond to this awesome podcast series I've enjoyed over the weekend. But yeah, to introduce you to Global Fashion Agenda, we're a non-profit platform on a mission to drive the fashion industry globally to a net positive future. That's our mission. And what we mean by that is by 2050, we'd like to see an industry that gives back more to society, ecology, and the economy than it takes. So that's our ambitious moonshot. And we work through a couple of different channels to do that. A lot of people know us here at Global Fashion Agenda for a large event we do every year called Global Fashion Summit. It was previously known as Copenhagen Fashion Summit. And this is a really big industry moment to bring the world's leading sustainability leaders in the fashion sector to this Nordic region, to Copenhagen, to exchange knowledge, best practices, and just keep moving the industry forward. But we also work on a couple of other things away from those events. So we have 3 core teams They are policy team, the impact team, and the academy team here at GFA. And through those 3 channels, we work with a really big ecosystem of global partners, from manufacturers to international brands, through to other nonprofits in our sector that are working on a series of different priorities in sustainability, from fair wages through to a circular economy. And we really see transparency as an enabler of all of this, and I'll get to that point in a minute. But yeah, our work at Global Fashion Agenda, as you can tell from the name of the organization, is really global. And my history personally is working in really global contexts. So yeah, I'm really excited to be speaking and working in the Nordic region, because I feel like it really is best in class for this work. And I think that the podcast spoke to that in quite an interesting way. My background is in art history. So my historical interest really lends itself to this topic too, documenting the provenance of a product, for example. And when it comes to marketing and storytelling for those products, I'm all about that. I love understanding the history of a commodity or an object through time. So I personally connect to transparency in that way, as was explored in the pod. So hopefully, yeah, I'll leave it there about GFA. You can find out more about us. I'm sure a lot of you know about the organization and its history in the city. I listened to one episode over the weekend. I was sick, so I was in bed hanging out, and really enjoyed the podcast. It was something really cool to do. Firstly, the narrator, the AI narrator, that is very cool. I've never actually heard that before. So I feel like you guys were really walking the talk on innovation, and it sounded really, really good as well. I don't know how it made me feel knowing that it wasn't a real person speaking, but I appreciated the innovation a lot. Yeah, I listened to one episode. I listened to the Circular by Design episode. I don't know why. I was just drawn to that topic. I think it's so complicated, it's circular economy. So I love being drawn to complex problems. I guess that's why I work in sustainability. And yeah, my role here as head of content at GFA is really connecting the dots between what we're doing with our partners and what's happening in the rest of the world, and telling stories about that. So I love a good podcast. When I think about transparency, you can kind of come at it from a couple of different points of view. From the marketing and claims perspective, from the supply chain point of view on due diligence, and then also from the product level, which is where we speak about the digital product passport. So I'm just going to pick up on some of the notes I took when I listened to this episode and just kind of comment on what I thought was interesting and try and link it to some of our more global work. So the first comment I wrote down, I think it came from Birgitte, or was it Morten? Anyway, there was a comment about the fact that fashion and furniture and other products is a global system. And someone quoted, "We will never have a local system." And for me, that's an interesting place to start, because when I dream about the future of our sector and sustainability initiatives in that, maybe bringing things more local is the way to create a more realistic circular economy. And especially with the Fritz Hansen and Spoor product example, which looked at the case of creating a product that was traceable, that seems quite local to me. And I've done a couple of, farm visits where you look at the cows, understand how they live, and understand that each cow has a name and its own passport. So being able to bring that into the product is something that I find very compelling and motivating, and maybe even in a global system that could be possible. Fashion's really struggling with this point, especially on leather, and especially when it comes to some kind of regenerative system for leather. So I really liked that point. And also, just reflecting on this region's expectations around being transparent in life and the values that we bring into this work as people. This is such a transparent area in the world, and the data levels that we have and the sophistication of that in our lives every day is major. So why wouldn't we bring that into our business? Let's see, just looking at some of my notes. The storytelling part of the podcast episode I really liked. There was a really insightful point on how consumers care more about stories than they do data sets. And I feel like that's really, really valid. And sometimes I see in our global community, I see companies and brands forget that. Within Global Fashion Agenda, we have a project called the Innovation Forum. It's usually part of our events, and it's kind of operates as a trade show area of the summit, where we curate different innovation partners and solution providers. So just to prepare for this pod, for this webinar, I just checked in with our innovation manager and asked, what's happening in the space to do with this topic on traceability and transparency. She said that it's a really competitive market for innovation right now. So there's lots of different innovators that are coming to the market with these solutions in different ways. But one thing she noticed is that there's very few innovation solutions for transparency in our sector, in fashion, that looks at the social side of sustainability. It's so often linked to the product side, the material or environmental side. But when we're looking for sustainability solutions that tell us about transparency for the people who made our clothes, that is something that as an innovation product still doesn't really exist so much. So that's something that we at GFA would really like to see more of when it comes to our community of innovators. But that kind of links to the policy and regulation side of things too. And Fred, just let me know when I should stop presenting, because I could talk all day about this topic generally. But I also checked in with our head of policy. All of our leadership team are currently at COP right now in Dubai with a strong policy mandate for the fashion industry, as well as working on projects that are phasing out fossil fuel in our sector. But the policy team updated me by letting me know that actually this week on Monday night, Parliament in Europe reached an agreement to revise the EU's eco design framework for sustainable product. So while we're all aware of that, and it was discussed in the podcast, this kind of like enabler or driver for traceability is policy. It's really exciting to me to see that these policies are being revised, not just being created and sidelined, and that they're really being engaged with. So some of the updates that were made this week were looking towards making products more durable, and specifically negotiators were agreeing on requirements that would phase out premature obsolescence of objects. So really trying to regulate how long a product can be in use. And that's one thing I really liked about listening to the podcast. I don't engage with the furniture sector that much, not as much as I'd like. And I feel like those products, which they can have so many lives compared to garments, and they're made of so many less materials, so that the traceability potential for furniture, and maybe that's why the Nordic region or this podcast is taking traceability learnings from the furniture experts, is because it's such a great place to start. So I'll definitely be looking out for work from this sector to inform what's happening in fashion. The last thing I'll say on the regulation point of view is that from a global point of view, when we talk about regulation, it's often really Eurocentric because of the strength of our democratic system here. But in the US, for example, that there isn't a standardized digital product passport system. There is a growing interest that this needs to happen. And there's a growing discussion around traceability, but at the moment there's no regulation. So the forces for creating a sustainable system that's traceable are mostly coming from industry bodies and large groups of industry bodies like the American Apparel and Footwear Association, creating pledges and asking a large number of the industry to sign. So that's kind of where I feel the Nordic region was maybe even 10 years ago, working on getting people to pledge towards this work. So yeah, to reflect on your question, Fred, from a global point of view, it's clear that the Nordic region is leading in this point of view. There's still so much work to do on traceability. But whatever happens, the more data we have, the better our decisions can be and the more rich our storytelling can be in any sector. So I'll leave it there and just see if there's any discussion, or I'll listen into the rest of this session. But it was really good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for your perspective, Faith. It was wonderful to have you on board, and I really like how you emphasize the way that the different industries that we brought together here can learn from each other, because apart from the partnership within the Nordics, learning from the different countries, we also see it very beneficial to take the learnings that we can get from the furniture industry to the fashion industry and vice versa. So that's a very valid point and part of the architecture of this project. I think I'm gonna use one of your lines as a segue to the next piece we have today, and that was policy is a driver and an enabler for traceability and transparency. So now we'll turn the perspective to that and to the legislative side of things. So our headline is, what is the coming digital product passport? And we have the pleasure to welcome Anders Arenfeldt Holm from Erhvervsstyrelsen in Denmark to talk us through this. And we've had Anders on board a few times before, and he is a very eloquent speaker and very good at explaining this. So I think, Anders, if you will just take over, we really look forward to hearing what you have to tell us.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. I'm pleased to be here today. My name is Anders Holm. I'm with the Danish Business Authority, as said. And for the past year and a half, I have been a part of the Danish negotiating group from the central administration, negotiating this new eco-design regulation. And I've been I'm very eager to come here today and present particularly the articles related to the digital product passport, which I've been responsible for. So thank you very much for inviting me. I have prepared some slides, so let me just see if I can quickly share my screen. All right, so now I cannot see anything but my own screen. Could you please confirm that you can now see my slides?
We can.
Okay, thank you very much. Cool. Well, I've been given about 15 minutes to do this presentation, which is, it's tough when you've been spending so much time on a topic like this to, kind of make it concise, but I've tried my best. And then please, if there are any questions, don't hesitate to reach out after this presentation. I have my contact information on one of the last slides, so please, just feel free to reach out. So I've been asked to present what is the common digital product passport, and I think just to take off, I think as both the introduction video and also Faith touched upon, it's as it is right now, it's pretty hard with both traceability, but also in general just to look at different pieces of or different products and really understand their sustainability and in a comparable way. So with the information that we have available to us today, it's very hard as a consumer, but also for public authorities when doing public procurement to really understand and compare the level of sustainability from different products. And with the digital product passport, this is from a regulatory point of view, what we're trying to push forward to make sure that there are increased sustainability information on product level available to interested parties. And if we take a look at the different informations that we foresee as part of this eco-design regulation, I have with you to the left of the screen, we have the different circularity or sustainability characteristics that this regulation enables regulators to regulate on product level in the future. And here it's very important to stress that the eco-design regulation is a horizontal framework. So that means that right now we're negotiating this framework that we can then adopt secondary legislative acts to make the product-specific requirements. So throughout this presentation, I will make references to some of the requirements that we assume will come, but since we're only now at the stage of the horizontal negotiation, it is still a little bit too early to come with concrete and specific requirements on product level. And also, I heard, Faith, that you heard from your policy people that that this regulation is already done and dusted. I think just to make clear, there is one last trilogue negotiation planned actually for today. So we are following with great interest the European Parliament and the Council that are sitting in the same room today, negotiating for the third time on this regulation and hopefully reaching an agreement. So I think from today we hope to see a final text, and that'll be very interesting. Okay, so if we look into these to this regulation, what it enables is from these different characteristics: durability, reliability, upgradability, repairability, but also some on the amount of recycled content. These are all the different product requirements that legislators can then set. And there are two ways in which you can do so. You can either set performance requirements. Those would most likely serve as a type of scoreboard, where you will have a benchmark for the way in which product must perform within these different categories. As an example, you can think of the energy labeling that you see now on energy-related products. When you buy a new fridge, you can see A, B, C, that kind of grading. And we assume that it will be somewhat similar on these other new characteristics. So that would be performance requirements, setting requirements on how well must the products perform within these different characteristics. And then we also have the opportunity to set information requirements. And these information requirements can be both on the performance requirements. That means that companies must communicate their product's performance. But it can also be a range of other informations that I've tried to highlight and give an overview of on the next slide. Just one more point on this slide is at the very bottom, you see that digital product passports will become a requirement when there is a delegated act setting product-specific requirements. So this means that as soon as the different product groups will be regulated through the secondary legislative acts, the digital product passport will become mandatory. All right, so as I said, this is an overview of the various information requirements that the horizontal act allows to set on the product level. As I said, these requirements are not decided upon yet, except for two of them. Okay, so as you see, there is a facility ID and an operator ID, and these are obligatory on all products. Okay, so in the horizontal act, legislators have decided to say, okay, we need for all products traceability. So this will be a requirement on all the products that are to be regulated. And the facility ID is really an effort to enhance the traceability of all products throughout their value chain, even requiring companies to inform what specific facility the product at hand has been manufactured at, and its life cycle from all the different operators, and that's the operator ID. Okay, so the remainder of these information requirements are still to be decided. As you see, they really range in the level of detail and the required data that companies must gather in order to live up to these information requirements. There could be the user manual. Okay, so that's consumer-friendly information on how to best install the products, use the products, and also get rid of the product at the end of life. but it could also be at a much more detailed level, and that's for example, the environmental footprint. Okay, so this could be the CO2 equivalent emission factors for the different products. I put in the parentheses the PEF. Okay, so this is the product environmental footprint. That's also yet to be decided. It's just to give you an idea of the level of detail that this horizontal legislation actually allows to regulate. And so these were the information requirements. I've also tried giving some examples on how can the various performance and information requirements look. So these are all from a report from the Joint Research Center. Okay, so that's part of the European Commission analytical work. And they've made a very good report for 15 different product groups that are assumed to be prioritized within the first working program of the eco-design regulation. And they've given their suggestions on what different performance requirements and information requirements to put on these product groups. And the examples that I've brought forward here today is on textiles. Okay, so again, it's important for me to highlight these. It's not to be sure that this is how the regulation on textiles will look, but at least it gives a pretty good sense of the level of detail, both from the performance and information requirements, as we expect them to look when the delegated acts starts coming. Okay, and all of these information could be a requirement to share through the digital product passport. And if we look into what requirements we can see from the horizontal legislation on the digital product passport, I've highlighted in the yellow circle the different articles regulating the digital product passport. We have Article 8, introducing the obligatory nature of the DPP, Article 9, setting out the general requirements, Article 10 on the technical design, which is where we from the Danish Business Authority has been very active in the negotiations, making sure that the underlying IT infrastructure is well equipped also for SMEs. Then we have Article 11, making the rules for the different unique identifiers. Article 12, setting up a central registry that the Commission will handle, and only a limited amount of information will be put in this registry, but really the point of having this registry is to link it to Article 13 on custom control, making sure that the different custom authorities in the EU can make checks on the DPPs, on the products that come into the EU, and checking the information that are then posted in the registry. And I've tried to just briefly summarize the different aspects that the horizontal legislation makes clear. First and foremost, the responsibility on providing the DPP will be put on the economic operator placing the product on the EU market. Okay, so this means the first time that a product reaches the EU market, that economic operator must make sure that there is a DPP available for that product. And then on the functionality, we have decided that the DPP must be connected through a data carrier. Okay, so the type of data carrier is also yet to be decided. This could be a QR code, an RFID tag, a watermark, but this will be decided in the product-specific delegated acts. And then this data carrier will link to a unique identifier, which most likely will be like a URL code. And it's very important here to understand that the entire system for the DPP is centered around a new approach to really data sharing, which is at least from a policy side of view, which is a decentralized system where companies will store and keep ownership of the data and then share it in a decentralized infrastructure. Whereas in previous policy, we've typically seen the creation of a central database that companies must then share their data into, and then the data is stored in this central database. But this is a new approach, and we're really excited for this new decentralized function of the system. Yes, and then in the latter part, it says that it will be either on product model or series level, and this is also a decision that will be made in the secondary legislative acts. Then the Horizontal Act also makes clear that there's different solutions for the DPP must be non-proprietary. Okay, so this means that the information must be based on open standards and it must be developed in interoperable formats. And then there are some different functions also put into this, that it must be machine readable, structured, and searchable. Okay, so these are more on the data inside of the DPP, whereas the first part is more on the system of data sharing. And then the access rights. Okay, so we'll be able to access the information in the DPP will be decided upon the need to know principle. Okay, so this means that the different market surveillance authorities in the EU will most likely have access to the majority of data in the DPP, whereas other actors in the value chain will get limited access based on their need to know. Okay, so this could be recycling facilities requiring access to or needing access to data on the product information on content and where the different materials are located in the product. But this information might not be that valuable to the consumer. So a consumer would have other access rights with information that is relevant and usable for the different actors. And then the last part is on the traceability, which I also already mentioned on the previous slide. And that is that all products must have this unique operator and facility identifier. So setting requirements on the traceability on all products. And I just also wanted to just take a step away from the regulation itself and really try to understand what is it that this regulation is trying to push forward. I was glad to hear that Faith mentioned the importance of having policy as a driver, and I tend to agree with this statement. And what we've seen from the Danish Business Authority is really that there is a need for increased data sharing on product level throughout the value chain. And not only the traceability data flowing down the value chain, but also product performance data coming from the consumers or recycling facilities and coming back into the companies of the value chain that can then use this information to innovate and make even more circular design on products. And what will be critical for this is better cooperation in value chain, and then also having the system of the DPP to really take into account the different needs of companies, including the protection of intellectual property and sensitive business information, but still pushing forward increased data sharing on product information. And then towards the end of my presentation here, I just wanted to give an example of how can this look like. Okay, so to the left we see a QR code, and the hope here is really that when you scan this QR code, you'll get access to this. Oh, well, this is an example from a company called Circularized that have made a DPP on a battery. Okay, so it's just to give you a sense of how could this look like in the future with the different informations, how can you access them, and the level of detail also here. And then, yeah, hopefully with the DPP in the future, we'll have better access to sustainability information on the different products, making it easier for both consumers and public authorities to make a more sustainable choice when purchasing based on whatever sustainability information that is most valuable to them. And then here I've just put my contact information. As I said, please don't hesitate to reach out. I can also, if we have time, take some questions now. Well, but anyway, thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Jonas. And per usual, dare I say, you very much deliver on conveying quite complex and sometimes a little abstract information in a very tangible way. I really think your presentation gives a good overview of what the digital product passport is, what steps will need to be in place in order to be compliant. And I know coming from the Danish business authority, probably your perspective is predominantly Danish. However, I allow myself to ask you a bold question as it relates to kind of the broader perspective. Do you see with the preparation and the implementation of the digital product passport, do you see the opportunity for creating competitive advantages in the Nordics being linked to this work?
Well, first and foremost, thank you again for complimenting the presentation. I will say that the level of detail, obviously, from this regulation is a bit higher than what I presented today. So if you want more on the technical side of the implementation of the DPP, I urge all of you to reach out. We have some more information also on the IT infrastructure and different requirements on the DPP. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And then on this, to answer your question, I think well, it's hard not to be optimistic for the future of the Nordic region. Really, both coming from the video we saw at the beginning of today and also the what we heard Faith say. I think in general that is the sense that I get also here at the Danish Business Authority. You know, we've been throughout this negotiation. We've been in contact with several Danish companies, primarily in this sector, and we really see a positive reception of this regulation and the ambitions behind it. So that's really encouraging for me to experience, is that there is a high hope and general optimism behind pushing for more sustainability and circularity from a regulated point of view. And then obviously it will be something new. It will be something that companies need to implement. And I think what we'll see is that there will be an opportunity really to innovate on product level design, but also to create new business models utilizing this data that will be available in the future within the DPP. So I'm overall optimistic.
That's a very nice high note to end your presentation on, Anders. Thank you so much for now. I'm sure we will speak with you again. Now moving from the Copenhagen pieces of today's session to Oslo. And Heidi, do you want to give a brief fly-in to Elin and Anita?
Of course. And thank you so much, Anders, for kind of stressing what the legislation is pushing forward. Now we will kind of move into the business side of this and what are we actually going to be able to cope from this. And Anita and Elin are joining us from the Norwegian partnership, both from fashion, furniture, sports, textiles, and all of these industries producing amazing consumer products. And we've been delighted to work with you guys. And you specifically have looked into the fact that we all have different strengths across the Nordics. And we've conducted roundtables across the countries. And you guys have collaborated and gathered all of these responses. And we'll share a little bit of highlights from this. But Anita and Elin, maybe Anita, will you go ahead and present PlusLab and what that is? And then Elin following that, and then I'll bring up your presentation.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Anita from Oslo, and I'm representing PlusLab. There's a cluster for the furniture and the interior and textile industries in Norway. I've been working together with Elin in this project.
Yeah, and good morning, everyone. I'm Elin. I'm from NF&TA, which is the national cluster for the textile industry in Norway.
And I hope you can see your presentation now, so you can go ahead and share some findings.
Yes, we will. And we had, our task was to look into the brands and get some insights from the brands and also some tech providers and stakeholders and look into what to think about a Nordic blockchain and if there are a potential for a Nordic blockchain, and quite interesting task. So we conducted roundtables in each country. You can switch slide. And I just want to say that before we start, that we trust that you know a little bit about blockchain beforehand, so you know what it's about and what this project is about and why we are doing this. So because we saw also through the process that when it comes to technology, it is a part of the discussions, but mostly the discussions are around transparency and traceability. But what we did was through the four Nordic countries, we had around 150 brands participating in our roundtables, and where we facilitated the discussions together with brands and tech providers and stakeholders. And in addition to that, we also had a survey, a quantitative survey, where the brands were answering some questions, and we had about 50 answers on that. And it's a great importance to see that it was important for us to both have these discussions and the quantitative information and connect it to the more data from the survey. And that has really increased our knowledge around the topic. And we have gone through all this data and all our notes together with the EU in Norway. And made this report on this. And one of the quotes from the answers is that yes, as I believe blockchain has a great potential and probably the best option to be traceable and transparent. And this is an answer for one of the surveys. Next. And as we said, we have a report. We can go deeper into the insights, but in the main insights we learned through this is the data collection perspective is important. We have talked about it earlier today, is the traceability and the transparency, and it's also linked to the digital product passport. And for the brands, it's important. It also includes the raw materials into it. And it's also of great importance that the data quality is high and high enough. And the main barriers of a blockchain solution, as the brands see it, is the knowledge. And it's the knowledge both of the brand itself and the suppliers. And it's the knowledge and the uncertainty about how and why to participate in a blockchain partnership, and the lack of supplier knowledge when it comes to secure and trustworthy data. And how can we improve this, and what is the way forward is about mapping the data points in the supply chain. And it should be an easy to use system. That is of great importance. It should be easy to collect and share data. And as a first step, the brands suggest it's to reduce the granularity and depth of data to ease the adoption in the beginning. And it means that you have to start somewhere and make it easy to get the right data. And of course, the technology and the use of blockchain or other technology, it is important that it's intuitive and accessible for all the stakeholders involved. And secondly, it's also important that it's scalable and it's seamless integration with the existing data systems in the brands.
So one of the main questions we also asked is do you see a potential for a Nordic blockchain solution? And we're eager to say that the majority considers a Nordic blockchain solutions to be beneficial, provided that the implementation of a solution is a joint effort. And this was based on the inputs from the participants that Anita mentioned earlier. But what was really important for them is that it's a joint effort across the Nordic countries. And I will talk a bit more about that. So if you change the slide, Heidi. brands, regardless of our origins, will need to navigate, as you all know, similar challenges and are likely to reach parallel conclusions. So the brands felt that pooling of resources and knowledge is of a strategic advantage. And then comes this element of the Nordic. The label resonates with brand strengths, as Faith earlier today mentioned, that the Nordic has a feeling around it that is beneficial and is synonymous with premium quality and steadfast relatability. So that could be a very interesting factor. But what was important was that the back-end infrastructure had to be universally applicable and capitalizing on the Nordic brand in the front end. So it would have to be linked to a digital product passport. We need to unite resources, knowledge, and experience. And we think that across the Nordic nations, we can become best practice or create best practice. So in essence, while the back-end infrastructure could be universally applicable, capitalizing on the Nordic brand in the front end could amplify trust and adaptation, and underscoring the merits of a collaborative regional approach over an isolated country-specific one. So that was interesting. And then the next case, we actually found a use case from Italy that already has started this work. It's an Italian trade agency that has established a blockchain solution, and it's mainly to secure that when it says made in Italy, it's actually, you can see that it is made in Italy, and to take care of sort of the brand made in Italy. And a Nordic Design Blockchain solution could be created similarly building on the Nordic brand, we believe. So just for the next slide, there's an example. Yeah. So Track IT, it was launched in 2021. It's a free service for Italian export companies. And we believe that this could be an interesting inspiration for Nordic countries to look towards and maybe develop in collaboration. So that was our very short presentation. It's important to know that the report is built on Heidi and Frederik, or the knowledge pool that is accessible. And of course, you can have access to the report that is part 2, which is the brand perspective that we just presented a short preview of.
Thank you guys so much. And I hope everybody's listening here is maybe influenced a little bit about our passion for this Nordic light that we have seen. All of the organizations that you're going to meet today, we have all worked with blockchain very nationally. And through the past three years or so, we've had communication going across. All right, well, in Norway, you're now finding out that this accounting way of working in our industry, that could be supported by blockchain. And then in Sweden, you came across all these great blockchain suppliers that started working with our industry and showed great results. And in Denmark, we saw a lot of brands testing blockchain in the market and gaining results from that. And in Finland, they had these great data ecosystems that they were building up in other industries, and the research out of Finland showed great potential. So this was the motivation for us to come together and try to understand if we're doing the exact same thing, but we, on top of all of this, share the same values of life. And I absolutely loved Faith's comment about how competitive this space is right now, but a lot of the cases are just doing product traceability. They're missing the point of this social aspects. And I think that's what have been the glue when we've been together. We see how that fundament of the Nordic, that we want to believe that everybody needs a good life, everybody should have products that they can repair and replace, or they can trade or resell. We see that a lot of our design brands want to create products that can last a long time. So when we brought cases together over this past year, nobody is asking, why should we be together as a Nordic countries? Why should we collaborate? I want to say that the pool of brands that really want to do good and really want to work responsible, they've actually found a lot more to collaborate with. So we're not just standing on the global stage and competing as a Danish design brand. We're all of a sudden standing together with a lot of other strong brands from Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. So I really appreciate, Elin and Anita, that you highlighted some of these drivers that could kickstart a Nordic collaboration. So this is great initiatives to continue the collaboration. Thank you so much for highlighting these cases. And we will come back to some of the brand stories across the Nordics. But for now, Erik, I would really appreciate if you would unmute, because we should hear a Swedish case, I think. That would be a really good time to hear who has done something specifically. And you represent one of our Swedish partners, and you guys have, over this past year, really looked at how can we specifically do this? How can we take legislation from the digital product passport, but not just be compliant, but actually work towards a competitive situation and a business model. Would you introduce yourself and your cluster, and then I'll bring up your slides.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it has been really interesting to join in this project, and we have been learning so much during this year, and also the industry. We feel that there's so much interesting from the industry. And my name is Erik Lundh, and I'm from, yes, you can have the first slide maybe. I'm from the Interior Cluster Sweden, and I'm going to talk about some cases with digital product passports that we have made for the Swedish furniture industry. And at the end of my presentation, I'm going to show you some QR codes that you can scan. So please be ready with your cell phones, and I will show you some cases that we have been doing. And the Interior Cluster Sweden, it's the other one, please. The first one. Yeah, the Interior Cluster Sweden is a cluster with furniture interior companies. The members are producers, designers, and suppliers and other organizations. And we have the purpose with the cluster is to assist the members with issues regarding export, education, and digitalization. Yeah, the next, please. And just shortly about the Swedish furniture industry, the structure. It consists mostly of small and medium enterprises, and they are often family owned and have been so for generations. Many of them are working with small series, craftsmanship, and I think in general there's quite a low digital structure in a company, and of course there will be a challenge in the future when the process are going to be digital with the digital product passports. So yeah, we early understood that we have to explain for the industry the upcoming EU legislation and the importance of traceability and transparency and the circular economy. So therefore, we made seminars, we made exhibitions, and we made workshops together with the companies, just to make them to understand the future demands with the DPP. Yeah. And together with the tech company Sigma, we divided the DPP in 3 pieces, because during the life circle you have different information to different receivers. So you have the pre-sale, you have the after-sale, and you have the afterlife. And in the pre-sale, that's when you create the passport. You have to have all the material, you have the producers, and you have the suppliers. And in the second step, it's when you sell the product. There you have the retailer, you have the owner of the product, and if something happens to the product during the lifetime, it could be a repair or new fabric. That information should also go to the passport. And then of course you have the afterlife. There you have the company who's do the recycling, and you have also the information to the consumer, how to take care and how to work and how to recycle the product when it's afterlife. Next, please. The structure we used when we created the DPP was first to take all the data. You have the material, the chemicals, you have information about carbon footprint, you have services, manuals, how to repair spare parts, and so on. You have all the data. And we put that into an XML file. And the reason we choose the XML file is it has to be readable both of humans and machines. And then we have help from our tech providers, Lingon and Delori, to put the information into blockchain. And therefore, just to ensure that there is no manipulation with the data in the value chain. And after that, we created the passport. Yes, next please. Yes, here you can see the QR codes I was talking about. So please use your cell phones now. We have been working with 5 different companies and producing different QR codes. This is 2 examples with different solutions. The first one is the Källemo Easy Chair Bruno, and we have been working with the tech provider Delori. And you can say that this solution is more focusing on the pre-sale, because Delori has a solution with an electronic signature, so you can be sure that you have the right data and secure the data from the suppliers in the value chain. And the second solution we have made, it's a campus chair from Lammhults, and it's the tech provider Lingon. And you can say they are more focusing on after sale, when the products are sold. And here you can, with this solution, you can ensure that this is an original, it's not a copy. And with this DPP, you can also have a more interactive or more connections with your the customer. And that's of course interesting when you're talking about these new business models, and that's very helpful. So this is just examples of what we have been doing, and we saw very early that we need to have some prototypes just to show the industry what's the future legislation and how it will look in the future. And this is made for the furniture industry, but I think that you have the same challenges and the same structure in many branches. So I hope you get something helpful, useful from this. So yes, just shortly what we have been doing this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much
for this, Erik. This is super inspiring, and like you say, it's so important to have tangible, cool examples to show. But like Faith talked into and Heidi covered as well, this is a super competitive place, especially with tech providers having a lot of different industries pulling at them left and right. So we're going to move into the kind of more practical side of things as to how do we attract these suppliers, how do we work with them in our industry and get them to want to work with us. And fortunately, we have our great Swedish partner Jonas Larsson from Science Park Borås, who can indulge us in that and enlighten us. So Jonas, please take over and let us know, how do you do it?
Thank you. I think you have the presentation at your side. Great. So how do we attract tech suppliers, and what cases have shown results in the industry? Thank you for the introduction. My name is Jonas Larsson. I work at the Swedish group Textiles. Yes, you can move on. Yeah. So in our conversations with companies and brands, it has sort of distilled down to this, that how do we create value and how do we follow the law? You can go back. So at this point in time, there are many upcoming laws, as you are aware, and companies are struggling with understanding how to do that. When it comes to creating value, I think what you see here, is a very interesting diagram. It shows the attitude behavioral gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. And on the vertical axis, you see explicit importance, and on the horizontal, it's impact on sales. So strong arguments here are what customers care about and what they are willing to pay more money for. So if we only look at how on the Sustainable Development Goals and what customers think is important, they think a decent work and economic growth, climate action, responsible consumption and production, life on land, gender equality, good health and well-being is very strong arguments. This is something that creates value for the customers if we only look at the Sustainable Development Goals. But if you move on to the next slide. If we then overlay the Sustainable Development Goals, same diagram, but with the 10 traditional positioning points, such as value for money, reliable, high quality, wide range, convenient, then suddenly the SDGs, they sort of slide down and many of them become weak arguments. A few still does remain as strong arguments: decent work and economic growth, climate action, and economic and responsible consumption and production. But so we need to understand how we can marry the traditionally strong positioning points, such as value for money, reliability, high quality, with decent work and economic growth, climate action. And here, blockchain solutions for transparency and traceability can be very helpful. You can move on to the next slide, please. So we have been working with the brand Gina Tricot, a local manufacturer of fashion that has production in Borås, a paper tail, which is a solution for transparency and traceability. And we were financed for this project, co-financed also by Tillväxtverket. So here we created a collection of locally made fashion garments. They retailed at the price, and these garments had full transparency all the way to the cotton field on both social and environmental indicators. This garment, it was a capsule collection, so it was only 50 garments. But it was served well as an initial test. So we can move on to the next slide, please. And here is then, we can start this little video. here is then how it looks in the Papertail app. You have the slit dress here by Gina-Tricot, and we can follow that all the way to the raw material and how many liters of water and how much carbon dioxide that was used. We can go and look at the social aspects here. Here we have Meet the Workers in Sweden. We can also send them a smiley. If we then, for some details on wage transparency, we have to look at a different case from as a example case here from Papertail, where you see you have if the salaries have been paid. And if you see that there was a little checkbox there, that means that the transaction has been verified from 3 directions. So it's the worker, the company, and the bank has verified the transaction. So here you get this very clear, you have the social transparency here as well that Faith was requesting earlier. Let's see here, we can probably move on to the next slide. Yes, results of this project. So the capsule collection that we did had a 3 to 4 times higher price than Gina-Tricot's normal garments. It was a capsule collection, but it sold out in 2 hours. So we could draw some conclusions from that. And Gina-Tricot drew enough conclusions so that they choose to continue with this and made this into a general collection. And that collection was launched earlier this autumn, so it's not concluded yet, but it had a higher price, I think around 30% higher price than Gina-Tricot's normal garments. And the initial analysis is that they sell faster, the garments, and have a higher sell-through than average Gina-Tricot garments. So how do we continue to build on this? How do we strengthen the sort of the transparency offer? And how do we, so we built this, we need to get better data if we want to further strengthen this offer. So we created this concept called Black Box for Transparency and Traceability, and it is an enormous, a portable solution that autonomously collects primary data on sustainability, impact, cost by manufacturing in the textile value chain and makes this information available to stakeholders. So here you have 2 sensors. One is the energy meter that measures energy consumption at the machine level, so at process level. And here we also, on the right, there is indoor air quality sensors that measures what is the impact, what is the air quality indoors at facility. So we can move on to the next slide, please. The system works like this, that you have the sensors that acquires the data. Then there is a gateway that transfers this data to a cloud service in Borås at the Videco, where we can look at the data and visualize it. And then through an API and application program interface, we can make the data available for the digital product passport, EU taxonomy reporting, stakeholder engagement, etc. And you see that there's a little smiley here on the energy meter, and this one says that the air quality is good. So we can have this sensor at the facility level that shows what is the air quality like with a smiley face, and at the same time the brands can have this in real time reported to the head office. And I don't know what person you are if you see that there is a sad face on the, you know, and you don't do anything about it. I think that will resonate with most people, and that they will actually do something about the air quality. All right. So thank you very much for listening to this. And please reach out if you have any questions.
And Jonas, I just put in the chat that this is all research that you at Science Park Borås have been working on, and we will try to get back to you guys on the findings of this, because research kind of takes a little bit of time to capture all the insights that you have gathered. And
yes,
I know that you guys are working on some specific articles where you're summing up all of these conclusions. So I just want to mention to everybody that we will share the content of this. It's public knowledge since we have been paid for by Nordic Innovation. So later on, these articles will be published and we can share it. Jonas, we actually did have a question on this blockchain, not blockchain. So I was just thinking we would take this now before we get to the next presentation. And this is Selma asking, do you recommend that all companies start to work with blockchain on each product, even though there are none competitive advantage to outpoint on these products? That was one question. Also, what are the competitive advantage of working with blockchain for a company? And I think to that I'll get to that in the presentation in a minute. But should everybody work with blockchain?
The big question, to blockchain or not to blockchain, that's the question. For Danish reference there. Well, the very short answer is that since we don't have all the details about the product passport, we can't say specifically yet, but I would, but what in our projects that we have done, there is an economic transaction and there is risk, high risk involved, and also there is reputational risk involved, like the salary transactions in the Gina Tricot case, for example. Especially, there it makes sense to have that. For other things, maybe climate impact, water use, maybe not so much, because we have to also, realize that blockchain is an energy-intensive technology. So on the social aspect, so this is my standpoint right now. In this second, I might change this afternoon, but right now, I think it seems like when it comes to people and social aspects, I think it's important because I just want to support. It has so much to do with the corruption and briberies and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to support that, Jonas. From a Danish perspective, we're seeing some of the similar situations. If you have a complex value chain with a lot of actors, low trust and low transparency, the very risky transactions, the ones where you want to make sure that when you're making a claim and saying this is something that I can stand on, if I have a certificate showing that I've done the right thing, those transactions, those are the ones that you want to make sure are locked on a blockchain. And I'll come back to a little bit about the blockchain and the business cases, and then that would make it hopefully a little more clear to you guys. But for now, Jonas, thank you so much. And luckily, all the amazing people that you've visited with today, they won't go anywhere. We're all still here and ready to help out. So
maybe Heidi, tagging on to where you came from Selma's question, maybe you can take us a little bit back and remind us why we started looking at the Nordic blockchain solution in the first place, and like what the process has been, what work has been done. And we started out with this claim that the Nordics are first movers within blockchain technology. And do you believe that we've evidenced that through the project? Is that what the interviews with the Nordic businesses have uncovered? And is that what the podcast has shown?
Thank you so much, Frederik. And I really hope everybody who's joining here today and listening, and maybe afterwards, are getting a deep motivation of not feeling alone and not feeling that they have to deal with all these challenges coming to our industry by ourselves. We have a long history of collaboration in the Nordics, and this is one of the cases where we should get together in the bus and help each other out. So why did we even look at blockchain technology? Most of people that are visiting with blockchain for the first time hear about it from a crypto point of view and cryptocurrency. And we are looking at the blockchain technology. We're not right now looking at cryptocurrencies and exchange of currency in that way. We're looking at the technology that is the backbone of that, and the backbone that is securing that when you lock a data point on a blockchain, it can be validated and it can be authenticized. And it can do so by multiple points, but most importantly, if you're looking at the technology for a first time, it can lock this data and make sure that there's a timestamp or a geographically stamp attached to the data point. Blockchain is a technology that when you lock data to the blockchain, you can't alter the data. And that is some of the strength to the blockchain that gives it authenticity and transparency, because then we know what we're looking at. And you can decide either to lock into a blockchain that's public or private, depending on what kind of data you want to share. So when you scan this QR code, you will access this knowledge pool that all the Nordic countries gathered in the beginning of this year. And we looked into what is the business side of blockchain. If we were to use traceability, transparency, authenticity, and compliance to a business, what can we then do? And we found 4 business opportunities. One, of course, increased transparency. That is a business opportunity, especially when the legislation in Europe is pushing for this. So if you are one of the first to comply with future legislation, that will give you a business opportunity, because you will definitely make it easier for your customers. Increased circularity is business too. And with increased circularity, that means that there's new business opportunities. Circular business models offers different ways of making money, and definitely make money on the project or product several times. Then we have increased authenticity, which means that when you're claiming this is your brand, this is your product, you can actually document why and how. And last but not least, new revenue streams. And just to highlight a few cases that have worked with this. Starting out, transparency, traceability. I know we're bringing out 2 of our great cases in fashion out of the Nordics. This is not just for big companies. This is definitely an opportunity for smaller brands as well. But tracing one thread of the time says it very specifically. How do you lock a data point for every transaction that happens from the cotton field all the way through to a t-shirt standing in the retail store trying to make a good decision? And here you see cases on both Bestseller and H&M that have locked this data on a blockchain solution. Both of them has tested with Textile Genesis, but there's other suppliers out there, and we can share a link afterwards where we've collaborated with the project called Blockchain Business that has mapped out all the solutions that are available for our industry specifically and how they work with our industry. Circularity was a second case I wanted to bring forward here. Now we're looking at a Norwegian case, and Empower is today a blockchain solution that is working within plastic and making sure that they can document whenever a plastic is picked up as a trash. They lock this data in a blockchain, and when a trash picker has, handed in the plastic that they have gathered up, they go to the NGO and deliver this it's locked to the blockchain. And as soon as it's locked on the blockchain, a payment goes directly to this, this person. And then it follows in the blockchain where the plastic goes. So when Vestra wanted to create furniture out of waste, they wanted to make sure that it was real waste and it was a value chain that they could plug into. They used the blockchain as an authentication of where did this come from. On top of that, they built a digital product passport, so the people that either business to business or business to consumer wanted to see where did this product come from, they could get the verification through their digital product passport. The last case I wanted to bring forward is new revenue streams. And what does that mean? Well, if we're talking about fashion, specifically textile, it is a very heavy polluting industry. So we need to look at, in that case specifically, how can we continue our sales so we still have a good revenue, but we need to produce less and we need to produce better. The climate is asking us to. Well, maybe we can start producing digital garments, digital assets that we can sell by using the technologies, as in blockchain technologies, or these NFTs, non-fungible tokens, as in a specific mark that we put on an asset, and claiming there's only this one assets, or you're buying one of these assets out of a capsule collections, and there won't be any copies of this, or you can't, falsify it. You can claim that I have this specific necklace, or I have this specific garment from a brand. These are, on one side, a fashion brand. This dress, it's only live in the digital world, whereas Simone, who's created this beautiful necklace, well, you can buy this necklace in a physical piece, but there's only been made a handful of these necklaces, but the necklace is tied into a blockchain, not only giving the storytelling side of it, but showcasing where is it produced, what value has it, and what story goes with all of this together. That means that when somebody is reselling the necklace, maybe 10, 50, 80 years from now, the NFT will lock the story of where had this product been and where will it go. So the business side of utilizing blockchain opens up new collaborations that we might not have been exploring before, because we haven't been able to unlock these new partnerships that data will reveal. And this, starting the year in exploring these 4 business models and what Nordic brands have already worked on, and from this first knowledge pool that we started out with, 25 brands out of the Nordics were willing to share their stories. Then we did the roundtables and figured out, all right, if we're already first movers on blockchain, what if we did something together in a Nordic Design Blockchain? 150 brands came together and said, all right, we would definitely like to pull our resources and do something together, because we're facing some of the same challenges. But if we could gain a competitive advantage, that would be awesome. And then we finalized the year in gathering 17 different brands across the Nordics, alongside 6 experts. And we asked this beautiful Mimi, an artificial intelligence that kind of captured all of these stories in a great podcast series. And Frederik, this is, this is our final product for this year. How have we done so far?
First of all, in all immodesty, we think we've done pretty great in being 6 Nordic partners collaborating on this and increasing the knowledge and the collaboration on these projects throughout the Nordics. But one of the things that we wanted to check was also the international reaction, especially to the podcast, since our main markets are international. So we were supposed to have a guest with us today to provide a perspective, an international perspective on the podcasts. A guest from American luxury brand Coach. Unfortunately, she's caught COVID, so she is unable to join. So Heidi and I will try to cover this. But for the past few weeks since we launched the podcast series, we've had 230 downloads of the episodes, and we're fairly proud of this since they're about an hour each episode. So it's an extensive amount of listening material. And among the positive reactions we've gotten, we've heard from revered journalists like Brooke Roberts-Ismail from Forbes. We've heard from trade councils around the world, and also from influential international buyers such as Nicole Sturdom from Zalando. And they've reacted positively to this narrative and to the questions and the considerations that these podcasts bring about from a Nordic perspective. Also, from a more political, legislative side, the UNECE, which is the trade council of the UN, they've been impressed with our work, and to such a degree that we've been in meetings with them for a while, actually since this summer, and the conversations concluded in Heidi taking part in a big meeting in Geneva a few weeks ago concerning the environmental, social, and governance of traceability and sustainability in the value chains. And we've been invited into this project going forward. So we think that the work we've been doing has had resonance, and there is definitely a good roadmap for moving forward. But now we're nearing the end of today's webinar. And the end of this part of the Nordic Blockchain Alliance project. So where can we go from here? One thing that we've learned is definitely the value of a pan-Nordic collaboration. As hopefully illustrated here today, each of the Nordic countries and the Nordic partners have their strong suits, and by collaborating, the pool of knowledge and the pool of industry insights grow. Our partnership and knowledge about each other also grow. So we've seen a strong strength in the Nordics working together because of our kinship, of our similarities, of our shared values and similar ways of doing business. So we hope that you guys who hopefully listened to the podcast or will be listening to the podcast has found it interesting, and that you will look into the additional material that we've also created, part of which was the cases that Heidi just shown. This is the final webinar for this project, but in the year to come, you will definitely hear more from us on future projects. And we want to take the opportunity.
And maybe just a quick highlight, Frederik. On the link in the chat, there is a conversation starter. So not only are you able to listen to our podcast, but we really want to invite more people in on the topic and going forward on the projects that are coming within this Nordic Blockchain Alliance. We definitely want more partners on board. So when you go onto the website, you have a possibility of pushing a button called Join the Conversation. So we really hope to receive a lot of possible topics or contacts that could join our conversation in the future. But Frederik, let's finish off for today.
So just as a tagging on to what you said, Heidi, blockchain is a network technology. And there is a reason why the network part is before the technology part. So we really need to forge strong networks, not least within the Nordics, in order to enable us to capitalize on all the things that these great technologies can provide us with. So we want to thank all the partners in this project for a fantastic year working together, for Nordic Innovation for providing the funds for doing this, to Science Park Borås and Interior Cluster Sweden, Innovation Norway for also supporting this financially, NF&TA and Plus Lab in Norway, Finnish Textile and Fashion in Finland, Blockchain Business, and then of course to all of you people listening and contributing to the conversation and hopefully continuing to do so. So thank you so much for now and have a lovely day.
Thank you, guys.